How you doing, everyone? Welcome along to this Level Up event. Been really excited about this one since I lined it up a while back. Actually, we lined this up, but this topic today, losing the plot here. This topic today, depending on where you are, could be tonight. Do we have anyone from the US on? So I have not seen anyone better at delivering this topic than the special guest that we have on today, and it's one of those that can severely hurt personally. this topic, taking ownership of this topic, can be a kick in the guts, but it can also, it will also be the number one thing that will take not just your business, but everything in life, your relationships, your health, your mindset, your finances, your business. When you embrace the learnings of what you can get from this and take ownership around this, the sky is seriously the limit. I actually used to, when I first started like personal development and improving myself and my business, I started reading books from a gentleman who Mr. Bidstrup is actually friends with and worked for, by the name of Brad Sugars. And there was a saying he said early on in a few books that I was reading, that was, you get what you deserve. And when the place that I was at in life at that point, I was like, pig's ass, I'm getting what I deserve. I deserve a hell of a lot better than what I'm getting right now from everything that I've been doing. This is rubbish. But you know what? That's because we are always doing the best we can from wherever we are at the time. And I wasn't where I needed to be. And it was learning the fundamentals of what you're going to learn today that totally changed that around for me and made that meaning, or that phrase, have massive meaning. We get what we deserve. In everything, we get what we deserve. So I am going to pass it straight over to my friend and business partner and mentor, Mr. Jan Bidstrup. Are you able to get yourself off mute, or have I hard mute? Oh, yep, there you are.
No, I'm good as long as the sound gets through.
Gotcha.
Cool. It's actually the first time I've sat on either webinar or presentation. I've felt butterflies for a while. One of the reasons being is you're digging back into my old knowledge that's been there for a long time, but I'm also sitting in front of another master who I know also know what I'm about to present. So that is a little bit of added pressure. Michael Simon, for those of you who don't know, has spent countless years, hours, whatever you want to call it, on personal development, and probably tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, on his personal development, just like I have. It's such an important part of our life and our journey. The old saying, if you're green, you're growing. If you're ripe, you're rotting. So we got to keep growing. And that's what this is all about. And Mr. Simon is really a shining example of personal development. He often refers to himself as I'm just a chippy, I'm just a carpenter, but he's so much more. He's a very astute businessman with a lot of knowledge and a lot of applied knowledge, and then a work habit that is unmatchable to boot, which is why he's having those success. So very fortunate to be in the group with him, and I feel privileged to present just a couple of slides, or what we call flip charts. There's 1,200 of them in my head, and I'm not going to get through all of those. I'm going to get through a couple. But as Mr. Michael Simon just said, one of them challenged me so much that I nearly chucked it in, so to speak. And I was going to tell everyone to get stuffed. I used stronger words than that, but to get stuffed, walked away at a cost of probably $25,000 if I'd done it, because that's what I would have wasted of my bosses at the time, money that he invested in me to go and learn it. Luckily, I slept on it, which I suggest you will do. Your learning from this will not come necessarily right now. It may not. It'll come at 2 o'clock this morning, when all of a sudden your brain goes to work, because it's got a funny way of doing stuff after you give up trying to defend yourself. It'll start going to work, and it'll work in your benefit, because we're going to talk about the brain. Now, Mike, am I able to screen share and all that? Let me just see. Oh yeah, I can. So I will just go here. Now I got no sound in the screen share, so that is cool. And right now you should have you got a black screen, Mike? Now you should have that.
Got it.
Got it. Okay. I just want to set this up because there's a little mechanism inside, and this is something you need in life in general, as I have applied it. And to make sure you get the most out of everything in life, including this moment, but also every moment that you have, there's something that you need to disengage first. And it's a little, hang on, let me just also start my stop clock so I can track myself. There's a little protection mechanism sitting in your head. It's sitting in the grumpy unit in your brain called the amygdala, and it's here to keep you safe. And what it keeps you safe from is, one of the things is, anyone that will challenge you or poke you and provoke you, your brain will shut down on you and it will throw two words into your head. And this is what they are. And all it is you think you know. And what that does, it shuts me down. So anything that comes out of my mouth from here on in, you'll go, oh, yeah, no, I know that. The challenge is, the minute you go, I know, your brain goes, I don't need to listen anymore because we already have this information. And now you might be listening and doing this, but your brain is completely switched off. And half an hour from now, you won't remember a single word of what was said. So you need to make a deal with yourself that you need to turn this I know mechanism off. And you know it exists, and the way it sounds like, if you've got teenagers, if you've got kids, you know exactly what I'm talking about, because they have I know mentality typed on their forehead. They know. If ever I wanted to build something I didn't know how, I'd go and ask a teenager, because they know everything. So it's just one of those things, you got to turn it off. I'll give you a little story. Many years ago, I can't remember how many, I was overseas, and it was at the height of my coaching career, and things were firing. I had a stack of clients, probably 15, 20 clients. I was doing well financially, and I felt like I was the guy. I had arrived. I had that good feeling about myself. And I'm sitting there having, it was back in the old days when I'd have a beer. I was having a beer or a glass of red wine with my mum. And as you know, when you had a couple of glasses of red, the brain starts to get creative. And she came up and says, why don't you, and then she presented an idea of what I could do with my clients to get more out of my coaching sessions with them. Now, when you've had a lot of success in something, you know everything, right? So I knew everything. What would my mum know? She's just my mum. So I shut her down and said, yeah, Mum, that's a great idea. We're already thinking about that. It didn't sound like I know. It just, no, we're already thinking about that. It's a great idea. We're going to plan it. I completely, with this mentality, dismissed what she was saying. Now, the reason I haven't told you what she was talking about is because I don't know. I cannot remember, because I dismissed her. I shut her down. My brain goes, no, we got this. It was pride that got in the way of me learning something from my mother in a field that she has never operated in. So I knew that she didn't know what she was talking about, of course, in inverted commas. So it cost me dearly, because I can remember at the time, I thought, my internal voice was, geez, that's brilliant. Why didn't I think of that? But I protected my ego, my frail ego, by saying, yeah, Mum, we got this. So please don't let don't let pride, which often it is, and a protection mechanism, don't let that stop you from great learning. It is really, really crucial. So when you catch yourself going, oh, that's easy for you to say, Mike, you've had all the success in your previous businesses. Oh, that's easy for you to say, Jan, you've spent many years in the coaching industry. Oh, that's easy for you to say, and at least you have time spent, in front of people, and you perform regularly. Oh, that's easy for you to say, Rick, because you have many years of network marketing experience. It's all BS. It's all a different version of this. It's just the adult version of I know, whereas kids go, no, I know. An adult's more sophisticated. What would you know? You have never been in my situation before. That's another version. Please don't do it, guys. It doesn't help you, and it prevents you from learning. So please, I can't see you right now because I'm sitting on a presenter screen. Please make sure you turn that right off and open up, and maybe you respond with, wow, that sounds interesting. How does that apply to me? Or how can I make that work for me? Create a useful belief around what you're learning as we move along. So let's get to some of the meat and potatoes of it. As you know, when you work by yourself, you're truly just responsible for what you do. When you tend to start working with other people and other companies, a line seems to appear in the middle of your world. And you will find yourself either operating above that line, or you will find yourself operating below that line, depending on your mindset generally, and perhaps not even your mindset on the day. This can really flex a lot. This is not set in stone. Is not something you can necessarily apply all the time, or you don't live it all the time, but it does exist. So, all of us have gone at some point out and done something, and it hasn't quite worked out the way we thought. Maybe it was our job, maybe it was relationship wise, maybe it was something we did with the kids and go, that wasn't quite where we wanted to be with that. Maybe it was your Kayani business. It could be anything. And for some people, they probably 80% of population will instinctively go to the first step below the line, and they'll start this. It's called blaming. It is pointing the finger. You know what? We went to do that workshop and it was no good because Mike had no idea how to set it up in the first place, and Mike didn't tell me how much. And Mike, you can do that. It's just blaming. The thing about blame, when I don't know if you can see me, when you look at the finger, I'm pointing the finger at it. You got one finger pointing at the person you're blaming. You got three fingers pointing back at yourself, and one is going up in the sky for hope. I think for prayer. So there's more fingers pointing back at you than pointing at the other person. So I'm sitting here, and I'm blaming Mike. Now Mike gets defensive, and he goes, now he needs to do something to keep himself sane. So no, yeah, and I told you that. You just forgot. Now, he's blaming back. And now the blame game is going back and forth and back and forth, and results are going nowhere. Absolutely nowhere. Nothing is moving forward. We are stuck, and we are stuck focusing on each other rather than what we should be doing, which is to fix, what it is we're blaming each other for in the first place. It could have been a bad webinar. It could have been a bad call. It could have been something that didn't go the way we expected. Our expectation got thawed, and now we're pointing the finger. So that's blame game. After a while, you realize you're going nowhere with the blame game, so you drop to the next level. You start making excuses around it. Mike, you possibly could have told me, but I had a bad headache on that day, so I didn't absorb. So you're now going into excuse territory. So you're no longer blaming a person, you're blaming a situation. And how easy is that to do at the moment? Think about it, guys. We got coronavirus, we got lockdown, we got a crap economy right now, we got businesses being shut down. It is easy to blame everything going on there on everything else. The thing about it is, don't blame, there's things you can't control, but start looking at what you can control and create some beliefs around how you can impact that. But the excuses are always external. They're going, oh, it's because the coronavirus, it's because it's winter right now, the fuel prices are going up, the America's gone to war with somebody, Facebook has just changed their algorithm, it's this, it's that, it's something. Blame is somebody, now it's something else. And now Mike and I are off the hook because we're blaming the environment, the pot we're sitting in, and it's no good. And eventually, having done long enough of that, some people get so tired of listening to themselves, they go into this territory, which is denial. And that is disaster territory. That's dangerous. Denial is lying to yourself. It's just so dangerous. It's, no, Mike, my business is great. We just haven't made money for years. It's Jim and Joe, Joanne and Jim, our neighbors. You've heard they've had a tough week. They haven't been happy with each other. A bit of yelling and screaming going on. We get invited over for barbecue. Not at the moment, but it's a story. We're going to get invited over for barbecue, and you go, "How are things?" And they're great, thanks. We're doing great. It's denial. They've swept it under the carpet. And as you know, denial is the absolute mother of all disasters, because when you don't acknowledge what's going on, you can't change it. If you sweep the challenge under the carpet, it doesn't exist, so you don't need to do it. Now, here's a denial. I used to have this one. No, I can stop smoking anytime. I smoke because I enjoy it. What a load of crap. If I could stop anytime, I would have done it. So I was completely in denial about that one. I couldn't stop anytime, but I just had to tell people because I was defensive about what I was saying. So now we're done exhausting the below the line behavior. There's probably many, many more. What I want you to think about, and maybe just take a few seconds, think about what are some of the below the line behaviors or, sentences or words, things that you use around yourself, your job, your health, your business, your relationship, your learning, your spirituality. What blame, excuse, denial do you do around that? Because what we need to do is we need to flip it on its head. The challenge with blame, excuse, denial, that, all of them, every single one of them, you have pushed it away from you. It doesn't exist within you. And when the control of your life is external to yourself and not internal, you have now given up control of everything that's going to happen. You cannot change it because you didn't do it in the first place. It was somebody else, something else, or it doesn't exist. So you can't change that. You are now stuck with the result you have, and you will repeat it over and over again until you change your mind around it. So what's better? Well, the thing about when you do something and you get a maybe a negative or an unwanted result, can you take ownership of it? Yeah, absolutely you can. What that might that sound like? Go back to Mike and I ran a bad webinar. Oh, Mike, I'm so sorry that you and I we ended up doing a webinar that wasn't quite there. I wonder what we could do. I wonder why that happened in the first place. What was it we didn't look at, and how can we do it better the next time? So we start looking into the system. We start taking ownership of, maybe there's something I didn't do. Oh my God, I was meant to confirm that I didn't. You take ownership of it. Once you take ownership of a result, whether that's good or bad, you can now change it, and you can change the outcome. I'll put two more words up in succession. We also need to be accountable. We need to take accountability. I hope I've spelled that right. And we need to be responsible and take responsibility. What's the difference between accountability and responsibility? They kind of sit this close in terms of, words. Accountability is the way I split them. We are accountable for we are responsible for the decisions we make, and we are accountable for the results, because everything you do will lead to a result, good, bad, or indifferent. So responsibility, you can spell that incorrectly and you can make it response-able. You're able to choose the responses to any given situation, and you're accountable for the outcome. Once you do that, once you adapt this, you are now fully in control of what's going on, and you're fully in control of the outcome because you can change it as you please. Now, when I didn't like this flip chart, it was purely because I didn't like what it was doing to me. I didn't like the way it was beginning to change to me, because I'd had some bad results in my life, and I'm sure you have too, everybody has. And I didn't want to learn this, just listen to this very carefully. I didn't want to learn and accept this flip chart for one single reason. And that was, I didn't want to be responsible for the bad results in my life. I wanted to keep just one little excuse up my sleeve. But I knew as soon as I adapt to this, I am dead out of excuses, and I can never use one again for a poor outcome that I have created. And I didn't want to accept it. And I fought tooth and nail that this was a load of hogwash, and it was just rubbish. We spent, by the way, a half a day on this flip chart alone, down to the point of, if you walk out your front door and you get hit by a meteor, right, whose fault is it? And when you think about it, do you know the dangers of walking out your front door? Yes, you do. So you take that risk. It's your responsibility. And we went everywhere. So start thinking about looking at the things you might have written down or thought about where you are below the line and you're using blame, excuse, and denial in your life. If you took ownership, accountability, and responsibility for that, what would it look like? What would you be thinking? What beliefs around what's happening in your life would you have now? And how can you change it? Because now we give the power back to you rather than give the power to something or somebody else. Now you take the power back, you're in control. Maybe you find out that there's some things you needed to learn to change the result. Maybe you weren't equipped or skilled enough to do what you needed to do to go and get the result that you desired. Maybe you just got lazy, and that's why you end up with a bad result. Sorry, yes, I'm striking hard. I can't see any of you right now. It's probably a good thing because nobody feels targeted. I'm just looking at a screen like you. But it's literally like that. So what's the result? Well, down here, we got a hat full of reasons. Nothing is moving forward. Up here, this is where we get the results. Here's a visual way of looking at it. We've got the David versus the Goliath up there. You conquer, you win. Up the top, down the bottom, you literally lose. The below the line is what we call the victim mentality. Up the top is the victor, as a victory. The victim down the bottom, oh, it's never their fault. There's entire television shows in Australia, devoted to the victim mentality. It's called A Current Affair. None of those people in there, it was none of their fault, none whatsoever. I'm sure, like you look at some of those and go, nah, there was your own stupidity. You knew that was coming. Why did you sign that in the first place? Yes, some of them you got to go, wow, the people were clever about it, that has really got had. Have I been had before? Yeah, absolutely I have. Whose fault was that? Mine, because I didn't do the research, I didn't do the background check, I didn't follow my gut instinct, a whole lot of things. There's no point blaming, because it's not going to get you anywhere. It's just going to get you the victim mentality, and victims, they really move forward from there. So yeah, that's probably as much as I can say about that flip chart as well. So I'm going to skip to another slide here. I hope I can in one hit. Yeah, I want to talk about the reticular activating system, because the above and below the line mentality very much impacts of how you think. The reticular activating system, or the RAS, or RAS, you've got to say that really carefully, because it's when you talk about your RAS, it doesn't necessarily sound so good. But the reticular activating system is that whatever you put front of mind, your mind will go out to seek out. They often use the blue Corolla theory. Imagine you go out one day and you want to buy a blue Toyota Corolla. And you might not have seen any Toyota Corollas before, but by the time you've gone through the dealership, you've done the shop, you looked at the colors, it's, oh no, the blue one, that's, I want one that's a little bit unique. I haven't seen any of the blue ones around. And you do your purchase, you're all happy, you get in the car, you drive out, and all of a sudden you're looking around going, geez, how come everybody is driving a blue Corolla? Think about where you've done this, and you've done it. Your mind has been, your senses have been heightened to something that you've been spending a lot of time on, and now you see it everywhere. You absolutely. I had in, I bought a Golf many, many years ago, and somebody said to me, "Did you buy a black Golf?" I said, "No, I've got a silver one." So, "Oh, good, black Golf. That's for little blonde girls to drive around in." And I don't know why he said that. He just, that was his impression. And all of a sudden, every time I saw a black Golf, I swear there was a blonde lady in it, and I couldn't quite work out what that was all about. But that was typically the reticular activating system that had been activated by somebody else. So be careful what you let in. So what it literally is, it's like a compass, but it's for your brain. So here it how's your work. You've got the subconscious, and then you've got the conscious. The conscious mind is what you think, what you speak. It's what you actively go out and you engage into. It's also many of your belief systems that sits in your conscious mind. You speak it. I believe in this, I think that, blah, and you speak it out. Now, your subconscious mind is, the conscious mind is the thinker. The subconscious mind is the prover. It will now go out to seek out every bit of evidence it can find that what you are thinking and saying is absolutely true, because that's the only thing the mind is here to do. It's here to help you get what you want. So be careful what you think, and be careful what you speak into reality, because your mind, the thinker will do the thinking, the prover will do the proving, and there's nothing you can do about the prover. It runs on autopilot. It is just here to prove what you're thinking and what you're saying is absolutely 100% true, and it does. And here's some words I want you to write down, if you can, please. Don't, not, and no. In your mind, the three words do not exist. Does that make sense? I do not want to be broke. I don't want to be broke. Well, your mind doesn't hear don't. So I'm even too scared to say it. So the mind will go out and prove I'm broke. I don't want to smoke. I don't want to be overweight. I don't want to be unhealthy. I don't want to be, whatever you do don't about, it'll just look at the word next to it and go, I'll give you some of that. So be very mindful of what you bring into that existence, because you're the prover, the thinker's you, the prover's your subconscious, will go out to prove what you just said will be true, because the brain doesn't like to be wrong, and the brain is just a servant. The subconscious is the servant. It'll just serve you. It'll serve up whatever you asked for. And, negative affirmations is, that negative self-chatter we get into, the below the line, the blame, excuses. It'll go to prove that it's never your fault. So it'll never seek to improve you because it's never any of your doing. So that's a little bit on that. Now, I was going to get into the identity iceberg, but I think maybe that's already a head full today. Let me just go back to camera Where's everybody? Oh, you guys are all shrunk into a little 1-inch square here. Let me get you back. Oh, I can see you again. So Mike, that was just a little bit of it. Maybe we can field some questions, or I don't know what you have in mind. Next, I'll throw over to you. I'll just go by your pace.
That was awesome, Jan. I've still got your shared screen there.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, you do too. How about
there
now?
we go. That was awesome. You know, what's crazy is I had only just finished a 50-minute webinar on affirmations and manifestations, and I hadn't planned to in that, but I went down the path of the RAS, the reticular activating system. It's such an important thing, and you know, I've heard it before, but I haven't learned it before. About the conscious mind and the subconscious mind, one being the thinker and one being the prover. You know, we always talk about programming our subconscious, but you know, at the end of the day, you know, it's thinking the right things that's going to have your subconscious play either for you or against you.
Well, it's interesting. Now we're going down a rabbit hole. This is deep. It's like gravity. Whether you believe in it or not, it'll work either for you or against you. You know, it's always working. And it also affects your physiology, by the way, the way you think. You know, Annalise did a brilliant thing on posture in Adelaide last Wednesday, which I've thoroughly enjoyed being a part of, you know, remotely. So your posture is impacted by how you think, but everybody else is impacted by you think as well. I'll give you an example. I'll come up with a stupid one. You can apply it where it's fit. If I sit there and talk to Mike and say, Mike, I hate my kids, and you go, oh my God, you know, that's just horrible. It's all right, Mike. I don't tell them. I'm only telling you, guys. They already know. You know, it's showing in my posture. It's showing in my actions. It's showing everything because my subconscious is now going out to do things that only somebody who hates their kids would do. I have no control of this, none whatsoever. The only thing I control is that conscious speech, which is the either positive or negative affirmation. It either works for me or works against me. It's entirely up to me. So yeah, it's a great one. I'm reading a book at the moment, by the way, that I'm going to share. I'm going to start doing some book reviews on a weekly basis in TFANs as well. And it talks about useful thinking. You know, we got to come up and create useful thinking around what's going on around us rather than anything else. So, you know, have some useful beliefs around what we see and what we experience. And one of the things that this guy keeps saying is that this is the greatest time in history to be whatever. And it is, because, you know, imagine, you know, it's the greatest time in history to be 55 and unemployed. Imagine being 55 and unemployed in the 1920s or in the 1930s. So he keeps paraphrasing, he keeps looking at things, so come up with useful thinking. He said positive thinking does not work because it relies on emotions, which are always like this. And you create this addiction to positive thinking, which tells somebody who's had a bad week, just be positive and wait for the backhander. But rather, how do we create useful thinking around or useful beliefs around what's going on right now, even if you had a crappy week? But, you know, by all means, don't project, oh, this next week's going to be rough, because the prover.
Yeah.
But, you know, you're sending your brain out there going, go and find evidence, go and find evidence.
Like the whole having a bad day, these things come in threes. You know, 2 bad things have happened. Oh, these things come in threes. Well, only if you say they do.
Yeah. How about great things come in pairs or come in threes?
So with the above and below the line, you know, been a part of trainings around that many times. And Victor and Victim have been the ones that are tattooed to my retina and my brain and all that. But I had a couple that popped up, a couple of new ones that popped up today, which was, for me, it was like a light switching on. And so all of the things below the line are destructive. And all of those words, actions, thoughts above the line are constructive. So are we whatever we're doing, I guess,
Mate, we've lost you.
there's the two ways of building the tallest building in town. One is knocking down everyone else's building. The other one is to go and build the tallest building. So you're only going to do that above the line in the constructive space.
As soon as, sorry, mate, you might have to do that again. As soon as we went below the line, the line went down and we lost you.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, totally. It froze
Probably
up.
good timing because I had kids and dogs and everything running past too. Maybe that was the reason. I was saying everything above the line is constructive and everything below the line is destructive. And so, you know, if we're trying to create whatever it is, obviously here we're talking about business, you know, if we want to be creating business, building business, making the business better, anything below the line is going to do the opposite to what we want to do. Even if it feels right, even if it feels good, even if it's ticking a few personal boxes for you, it's not going to move you towards what you're setting out to do. Only things above the line are going to be constructive.
Here's a question for everybody. Can you be above the line all the time?
Oh, I can't.
There's only a few people on the screen. Janine's laughing. She's seen this for 20 years. So, you know, yeah, I can be above the line 20 times. You know, I would question that's potentially denial right there. It's very challenging to stay above the line. So, you know, what's easier, to stay above the line or to stay below the line? You know, below the line is inevitably easier just to throw it out there and go, Mike, it's your fault. It's much, much easier. It is a challenge. And initially it's difficult to come above the line, but man, it's worth it, because in the long term, it becomes easier. And then being below the line is just misery down there. But it is a challenge. But then again,
for me, Jan, it's everything to do with life, to do with personal development, learning these skills, sitting through these trainings. Everything just comes back to awareness. Now, if someone has never sat through that information before, they've had no awareness around it. So how can you make the best decisions and take the best actions for yourself and the people around you if you have no awareness around it? So it begins by sitting through something like this. And then, as I said at the beginning, like my experience with this, like 20 years ago, basically, was my instant reaction to all of that learning was below the line, instantly. And, you know, I don't beat myself up for it because, as I said, we're doing the best we can from wherever we're at. But I needed some education. I needed to upskill. I needed to learn a few things from others who had walked down the path. And sometimes the truth really, really hurts. And so, you know, if you're on this live or if you're watching this recording and it's the first time that you've seen that, as you said, Jan, it might be 2 a.m. tomorrow morning where a few lights start flicking on and you might be sitting there now going, oh, you know, what a crock, what an absolute crock. But you're early in the journey. And so you can never, ever stop learning from this. My personal opinion is nobody can stay 100% above the line, but going through this and learning it gives you that awareness. So when you do dip below the line, it's only for a few minutes. Maybe at the beginning it's a few weeks, but then it might be a few days, and then it might be a few hours, and then it might just be a few minutes or even just seconds where you just dip below the line for a second and you're talking trash and you're thinking trash, but then your mind goes back to where you want to go to, the learnings that you've learned like this, and awareness around going, holy cow, I'm below the line. That is a victim mentality. That is deconstructive. That is, you know, that's not where the results lie, basically. And then so you quickly get yourself above the line. And the easiest way to do it is whatever you are feeling, thinking, doing, saying, just feel, think, do, say the exact opposite.
Absolutely. Look, it's one of those things, you know, so where do you sit with it now? Where do people take it from here? I like actions that are simple and make them fun. One of the first things I did with this flip chart, I realized that it was important. And this was day 4 in my 10-day action coach training that I did this flip chart. And I had a almost toe to toe with a coach, a guy by the name of Steve Leach, that actually taught me this. He never implanted any thoughts in my head. He just asked me questions. And it was frustrating the hell out of me because my answers continually came up and proved him right. So I was arguing with myself essentially. But what I did, once I slept on it, I decided not to quit or murder anyone. I printed it out. I got it printed out, and I looked at it every single day. I had a wallet card with it. I taught the kids, they were better at it than I was because they haven't lived as much rubbish in my head as I had. So I gave them full permission, and this is how you teach it. You teach it to your family, teach your kid as a bit of fun, and then make the agreement that if anyone goes behind the first question, that is, hey, Mike, was that above or below the line? And then just shut up and let the person have, because you can't, hey, Mike, that was below the line. Now I'm blaming. So I'm going below the line. So you've got to ask the question, hey, Mike, can I just draw your attention? Was that above or below the line, what you just said? And that was, and then you get to think about it. And my kids going, I remember driving home one night from somewhere and I've let rip of something, in my usual old style. And my oldest son, he would have been, wow, we're talking 11, 12 at the time. And he goes, Dad, was that below the line? And I didn't know where to go with it. I didn't know whether to fire up, you cry in appreciation that my son knows more about this. But the first reaction was, hang on a minute, son, I teach this stuff. How dare you? That was my internal dialogue, and you would feel that way. But I had to turn around and own it and go, you know what? That was way below the line. Let me try again. And I learned as much from my kids as I've ever learned myself through other people. And when I've taught this to client, I teach it to their staff as well as the owners. And the question always comes, what if the boss is below the line? Can I call him or her out on it? I said, especially the boss. Because it flows up and down. In your organization, same thing. Put this into your organization. Teach it upline, downline, crossline, wherever you want to go. But make sure you can't call somebody out who hasn't learned this. You can't walk up to complete strangers. That's below the line. They've got no idea what you're talking about. They don't have your knowledge. But the more you can spread this, the more amazing your life around you will be. Because if everybody's above the line, imagine how little argument there will be around who did it. Because it's just such a stupid, useless, going nowhere conversation. Whose fault was this? And by the way you ask questions, here's one for parents. If you start the sentence or the question with the word why, hey, Mike, why did you do this? You have led him below the line right there. Because the only thing he can do now is defend with an excuse rather than, hey, Mike, the webinar, was that the result you were after? No, not really. Oh, what happened? Now, I didn't do this. I didn't tell everybody the right thing. I put the wrong number. Different conversation. The minute you start with why did you do this? Why did you leave the milk out? Why? The next response will be below the line, I promise you. So we got to learn to own it as well by asking better questions and literally open and not be judgmental and say, well, what happened there? Is this what you were looking for? No, I was looking for a different result. Oh, what happened?
I've been hit with an approach towards me with that, which me knowing at the above and below the line training, I love this question, and it is: did you not know, or were you being lazy? Where do you go?
Yeah, thanks, Mark.
Yeah,
that was a Davenport.
I was just being lazy. Sorry, it won't happen again.
That was a Davenport right there.
Yeah. So you know what's not surprising, but surprising, is the fact that we've gone 40 minutes. That this has felt like 5 minutes, and it has been amazing yarn, but I also really try and keep these to like 20 to 40 minutes, somewhere in there. So
that's my fault.
So we're going to have to wrap it up, but the old time flies when you're having fun is exactly what's happened here. This has been priceless. I'm sure everybody, I saw some of the comments going through. It's amazing. And you know what is amazing is that often we are exposed to this, or we hear this, or this, maybe it resonates with us right when it needs to. We might have been exposed to it a few times, but it resonates with us right when we need to hear it. So, Awesome. Thanks for jumping on live, guys. This will be recorded and chucked into the resource tab. So yeah, it's there for everyone for years to come, because this is something that never changes. You know, when did you first learn this, Jan?
2002.
There you go. 18 years ago. It was as right then as it is now, and in 18 years from now, it will be as well. So thank you so much for giving up your time and jumping on, Jan, and pouring some value into everyone.
My pleasure.
Awesome. Have a great weekend, everybody. Talk soon.
Thank you. See ya.
Thanks, you.